Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Let me introduce the members of town government that assist this board. To my left is Martin Simon, Assistant Town Attorney. To his left is Blaise Donadio, a planner in the Planning Department. You are all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide this board with precise and accurate information so we can make a decision based on the facts presented. This board must consider the 5 area variance considerations in order to render a decision. They're posted up there, and they are as follows. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates and, present your certificates of posting and mailing to Mr. Donadio. Then you'll be asked to go to the podium where you'll state your name and address for the record, and then proceed to tell us why you need your variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given 1 opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 3 ways to find out about your case. You can stay after the hearing, but there's no guarantee that your case will be acted on tonight. You can call the planning office tomorrow after 12 p.m., or you can wait and be notified by mail. We do have 1 adjournment tonight, and that is case number 18761, Farm to Table, Smithtown Realty, LLC. That has been adjourned to August 9th. Is there anyone here for that? No? Okay. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, case number 18757, Nicholas and Erica Panapinto, 21 Dorchester Road, Smithtown. The location of the property is the northwest corner of Dorchester Road and Buxton Way. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth of groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for a proposed 241 square foot second-story addition.
Good evening.
How are you? Brian Capo, Capo Design Build.
I need the applicant. Good
Hi.
evening.
Good evening. Erica Panapinto, applicant,
And your address?
Dorchester Road, Smithtown, New York.
Would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, please.
Fine. Thank you. You can sit down if you'd like. Okay. Sir, could you state your name, spell your last name so we get it correct for the record, and give your address, please?
Brian Capo, C-A-P-O, B-R-I-A-N, 30 Lake Avenue South, Nesconset, New York.
Thank you.
So we're applying for a second-story addition over an existing den. House is already has bedrooms up, and we're just looking to expand out for a laundry room and a larger bathroom off the master. It's not, I don't think anyone even know we would built it when it's finished, so it's really not going to make any type of an undesirable change. I believe this is basically just a groundwater issue. There's an in-ground swimming pool on the property. The existing 2-story house that's there is on the exact same footing that we're proposing the new addition above. there's really no other way to get to this and expand the master since it's already on the second floor to get the bedrooms bigger, or to get the bathroom bigger, I should say. It's, again, not a substantial variance. It fits right underneath, right above the existing first floor. I don't see any negative effects on the neighborhood. It fits right into the rest of the style of the house. Looks like it was built originally that way. And we haven't done it yet, so I don't think there's any self-created situation. We're requesting that we can get it done legally.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No. Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please? Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18758, Sandra Miranda, 351 Forest Lane, Smithtown. The location of the property is the south side of Forest Lane, 881 feet west of Brookside Drive. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 50 feet to 38 feet for a proposed 30-square-foot portico.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Miranda, M-I-R-A-N-D-A. My address is 351 Forest Lane in Smithtown.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm looking to build a portico on the front of my home. It does not create any hardship. It would add, I think, a nice feature to the home. There's no substantial impact to any of my neighbors,
And it's 30 square feet.
and it's 30 square feet.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18759, Anne Marie and Thomas R. Turkle, 42 Oak Street, St. James. The location of the property, the south side of Oak Street, 182 feet west of Astor Avenue. The property is owned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 75 feet to 24 feet. It is existing at 27 feet for a proposed 77-square-foot first-floor rear addition.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Turkel, T-U-R-K-E-L. I reside at 42 Oak Street in St. James, New York, along with my wife, my daughter, and my granddaughter. So it's 3 adults and a 9-year-old child, plus 2 dogs. That's the hardship that I created, okay? Moving forward from that, there is a slight error in the numbers here because this house was built in 1966 on a non-conforming lot. So the rear yard setback never was 75 feet. It was always 30 feet. Okay? And the relief I'm asking is to move, to extend the rear of the house out about 3 feet. So that would reduce the rear yard setback to 27 feet. And the purpose of doing that is that after living in the house for 3.5 years, when we bought it 3.5 years ago, we have discovered that the two rooms that we use the most is the kitchen and the den, which are side by side. And they are the two smallest rooms in the house besides the bathrooms. And it gets a little crowded. So we would like to make a small addition to the rear. It totals a sum total of 75 square feet, and it's extending the house backwards towards the rear property line by 3 feet. The exterior finish on the house will be exactly what the rest of the house looks like. After the addition is done, anybody that came and looked would be very hard pressed to tell that anything was done. It's not invasive, it's not obtrusive, doesn't make noise, doesn't create odors, and doesn't affect anybody that I'm aware of.
Good. So you're only going to 27 feet?
27 feet from 30 feet. 30 feet is the existing legal rear yard setback because it's a non-conforming lot.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18760, Smithtown Paws, Inc., doing business as Houndstown Smithtown Unison Property Group, LLC, 395 Middle Country Road, St. James. The location of the property is the northwest corner of Middle Country Road and Marchant Drive. The property is owned WSI. The applicant is requesting a special exception to permit animal boarding in the WSI zoning district. A variance of a special exception standard to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 50 feet to 6 feet. A variance of a special exception standard to reduce the distance to property line on Marchant Drive from 100 feet to 36 feet for a 10-foot by 20-foot outdoor dog run. To reduce the minimum parking setback from a residential district from 25 feet to 10 feet. To eliminate the required landscaping islands. To reduce the minimum parking setback from the front property line on Marchant Drive from 25 feet to 0, to reduce the minimum parking setback from the front property line on Middle Country Road from 25 feet to 16 feet, to permit an awning with writing on the awning other than the flap, to increase the permitted square footage of a wall awning sign from 58 square feet to 193 square feet, to increase the height of an awning sign from 12 feet to 17 feet, for proposed 4,752 square foot animal boarding facility.
Good evening.
My name is Russell Izzo. I'm one of the owners of the, and this gentleman is a proposed tenant. So he's looking to open up a animal dog daycare at the facility. And prior to entertaining that, to one of his current facilities and determined that it was in very, very nice condition and didn't disturb any of the neighbors. One of our neighbors is the Guide Dog Foundation right next door, and we've never seen hide nor hair of them as well. So
Okay.
we were willing to entertain, and we are here to request permission to do so.
Thank you, Russell.
So you drew the short straw, right?
I did, yes, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, board. Thank you very much for your time
Can
tonight.
you just state your name, spell your last name so we get it correct,
Abs-
and your address, please?
My name is Michael Schneider. My last name is spelled Neider, and my address is 24 Bonnie K Court in Sayville, 782.
Thank you. You
Sorry.
can lift that up.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
We are a interactive doggy daycare, boarding and grooming facility. We have 32 locations that are open now across the country. We're growing even more. We have actually been a part of the Smithtown community in other ways. We have a Houndstown charity, which is charitable work that we do, such as we foster dogs, and we provide a safe and clean environment for dogs to come in and really just enjoy themselves. We're a pack mentality, so I provided everybody with folders. It kind of really gives a good explanation on what we do and who we are. We're basically here to have fun. We're all about being involved with our community, with other businesses in our community. As far as our variances go, can I speak on the ones that apply to us, and Russell will speak on the ones? Okay.
Fine.
So the awning variances, we didn't really replace it. We're just kind of, it's very standard sizes. We are a franchise, so we're required to have certain, not so much sizes, but coloring. Like I said, we like to have fun, so we're green and blue. There's our folders in front of you. I'll just open up the folder and go through some other stuff. At our Comac Road location, which is the folder in front of you, next to us, we have a restaurant with outdoor seating, so as far as noise goes, and we also have a barber shop to the other side of us. We have a decibel level that's lower than a normal daycare for children. We have a decibel level lower than a restaurant when it comes to sound, so I don't think will be a factor when it comes to sound. As far as scents go, we partner with a company called Scent Air, so our facilities, as Russell could let you know as well, they're very clean. You come in, it smells very wonderful. But that's really it as far as that for the variance. Is there any questions I can answer, or?
Is this strictly for dogs, or
This
is
is
it
strictly-
dogs,
we also,
cats?
as well.
Cats
Yep,
and dogs?
Cats and dogs, yeah. We mainly focus on dogs. However, we do provide a cat boarding area, which is separate from the rest of our dogs, where we soundproof a room basically for them.
Okay. I had a question on the exercise area.
Sure, the outdoor area.
Is that you, or
That's me, yes, sir.
that's you?
Yep.
That's on the outside of the building.
That's where a loading dock would be. We wouldn't utilize a loading dock. We like to give the dogs fresh air. It's really good for them, just like
Right.
when I come home from work and my children are at my door ready to go outside. We like to do the same thing for the
Now,
dogs. And
that's all asphalted.
we propose the turf as well.
Okay.
Eventually, that's what.
So you're
yep,
going to take it up? and-
Exactly, yep.
Okay. And obviously, it's all enclosed?
Yep, exactly. Yep, we also actually have a net that goes over the top for any dogs that can jump, so it's fully enclosed. There's no escape artists.
Okay. Would you like to speak on, well, does anybody have any questions for him?
Yeah, just on the, I guess on the layout,
Yes, sir.
you're not proposing any changes. This is the existing center.
That's
You-
exactly, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ross.
From our own perspective, we purchased the building. Many of you might have known it. It's where the Aboff Painting Store is.
Yes.
And it was in a certain condition that we needed to improve and fix up. So that's just what we're covering here in our application. Landscaping, things like that.
Okay, fine. Does anybody have any questions on this entire application?
Nothing.
No? Planning?
Mr. Chairman, the Planning Department extensively reviewed the application. It went through a number of site plan revisions based on recommendations that we made to the applicant, and at this point, we do recommend approval of the request.
Okay. We still don't have a sequest, so we can't vote on it tonight, okay? And Mr. King would be proud of you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to close the app? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application? Nope. Can I have a motion to close the application, please? Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
The next application on the agenda is case number 18729, Matthew and Catherine Ventura, 21 Beverly Court, Fort Salonga. The location of the property is the west side of Beverly Court, 645 feet south of Beach Hill Drive. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a special exception to permit temporary living quarters for a parent.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Matt Ventura for the applicant, my wife and my son. My mother's not here, but Kate will be speaking on our behalf.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board.
Good evening.
Kathleen McHenry, Long Island Permits, P.O. Box 5, Center Moriches, New York, 11934.
Can you just spell your last name so we get
Sure.
it correct for the record?
MCHENRY.
Thank you.
Forgive me, I was at the beach kayaking with my kids this weekend, and my voice hasn't been right. We're here before you tonight requesting permission for a special exception to permit a temporary living quarters for a parent with a 903 square foot addition. I would like to state that Mrs. Ventura has just recently been diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease, which has made it impossible for her to care for herself and her family. In addition, her mother-in-law is dealing with the recent loss of her husband of 52 years. Mr. and Mrs. Ventura moved back to Long Island with the intention of living with their mother to provide each other with the support that each needs. This extension will allow the mother to aid in the daily tasks such as meal prep, laundry, cleaning, transportation, and much more. In return, the Venturas will be able to provide her with emotional support at this time. As she progresses in years, this will allow the Venturas to provide her assistance in her daily tasks, should she need it. As I previously stated, the Venturas recently moved back from Florida with the sole purpose of living together in a shared space with their mother. The mother is coming from a house with more than 3,000 square feet, as are the Venturas. They want her to be as comfortable as possible to live out her life. The plan is also to have the space if in the future there is in-home nursing care needed for the mother, and to make any accommodation needed for such care. Because the cost of renovations and additions are so high, the Ventura's plan was to do this addition with consideration for all of its intended uses. Now, room for nursing care later on, and also a plan to revert it back to part of the main home once she passes. The addition will be one story, as to have no issues with the mother getting around as she gets older. All appliances proposed are apartment size. Both the refrigerator and stove will be 24 inches wide. The Venturas purchased this specific home with the thought that there was the ability to build backwards without disturbing the aesthetics of the neighborhood or encroaching on any of the neighbors. It was important that they stayed in the town of Smithtown, as their mother has been a resident of the community for over 55 years. She is a member and volunteers at St. Joseph's Church in Kings Park and wanted to stay close. Just to clarify, the proposed addition in its entirety will be 1,152 square feet. However, 180 square feet is for a shared den, and 69 square feet is proposed as a shared storage/mudroom. Therefore, we are here before you only seeking relief for a 903 square foot temporary living quarters. There is a separation door planned in the den. This is for the reason that the mother's grandchildren and other son are highly allergic to dogs, and this would enable her to not be isolated from her other family. When they visit, this can be closed off as to keep them away from the allergens. I would like to mention that we have filed for LWRP, received their recommendations, and have made accommodations to satisfy all conditions required. I have submitted for the board's consideration a letter from Ms. Ventura, as well as a letter from Columbia University Irving Medical Center explaining Ms. Ventura's current medical condition. I have also included computerized renderings of the Ventura's future plan to convert the space back to the part of the main dwelling in the future. I did have two neighbors reach out to me, one via phone and the other email. Both had no objection to the application. We believe our application is in the exact spirit of why such a special exemption exists. In addition, that we believe the relief we are seeking, if granted, would have no negative impact on the neighborhood and would be keeping with the nature and characteristics of the surrounding properties. I welcome any questions the board may have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
No, thank you.
Planning?
Mr. Chairman, the Planning Department reviewed the application, prepared a planning advisory report for the board, and we recommend approval of the application.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? No. You have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
You too.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18762, Vox International Corp., 180 Marcus Boulevard, Hauppauge. The location of the property is the west side of Marcus Boulevard, 922 feet north of Arcade Drive. The property is zoned LI. The applicant is requesting variances to increase the maximum height of an accessory structure from 18 feet to 20 feet, to reduce the minimum required side yard setback from 20 feet to 10 feet, to reduce the minimum required parking from 344 to 267 spaces, to eliminate required planting islands at the end of parking space rows for proposed 7,800 square foot industrial accessory structure.
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, my name is Robert Lawrence, and Lawrence, from Long Island Building Systems, and there's a power of attorney allowing us to speak on file. We're proposing an accessory building, which is primarily going to be used for storage, and it will also include a wood shop, which is going to be used to make displays for trade shows. The existing building does not have enough storage for our client, and they're currently utilizing some storage containers at the back of the property that will be removed once this structure is complete. We are reducing the number of parking spaces to 250 physical spaces with 17 land bank spaces. The reduction is due to the footprint of the proposed building and also to maintain some employee areas, which is a volleyball court, a couple of patios in the back with seating, and the little memorial garden that's back there. There are 150 total employees there, and there will be 250 physical parking spaces provided. We're asking for a reduction in the side yard to kind of push the building a little bit more towards the side so that it doesn't disrupt the traffic flow in and out of the property. And because the storage building, we're making it we were asking for 2 feet in height additional so that there can be additional storage up high. And that's basically it. I know that there's also a request for reducing an island on the side, but I don't actually, once the land bank is there, there's like one spot that doesn't have that on the side, but otherwise we actually are providing islands on the ends of all parking aisles.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18763, R.A. Smithtown LLC and EAS Smithtown LLC. The location of the property is State Road Route 25 in St. James, the southeast corner of Middle Country Road and Seagram Avenue. The property is zoned LI. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the required minimum parking spaces from 228 to 111, to reduce the minimum side yard parking setback from 6 feet to 1 foot, to permit environmentally sensitive land to be altered where slopes are greater than 15%, to permit structures within 10 feet of any slope greater than 25% for proposed 85,500 square foot, three-story mini storage warehouse with 25,500 square foot basement and related parking.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you? Anthony Guardino, law firm Farrell Fritz, for the applicants, R.A. Smithtown LLC and EAS Smithtown LLC, which own the property located at the southeast corner of Middle Country Road and Seagram Avenue in St. James, and they are seeking to add a basement beneath an already three-story mini. As the board may recall, it actually granted a variance or variances to my client's predecessor to permit a three-story mini storage warehouse on the site back in November of 2020. And what my clients are now requesting some modified relief from this board, which is necessitated by a basement that they'd like to build beneath the previously approved building. The basement is needed because many storage warehouses, in order to be successful, require kind of like a critical mass, about 100,000 square feet, in order to create a sufficient number and variety and sizes of storage units. I have with me tonight Alex Kosiski of Bowler Engineering, and principals of the applicants are here as well to answer any questions that the board may have. As was stated, the property is undeveloped. It's about 3 acres in size. It's located on the south side of Middle Country Road. It really is just a couple of lots from here. It's just right here across on the other side of the Ford dealership. The lot is both very narrow and very deep, which makes it particularly appropriate for a mini storage warehouse use and not really much else, because it's like a bowling alley. It's long and narrow. The site, as Mr. Donadio mentioned, is in the LI Light Industry District, and which that permits mini storage warehouses as of right. The site is somewhat unique in that it's unique in many ways, but it's sandwiched between 4 car dealerships. To the east, west, north, and south, you have to the east the Volkswagen dealership. To the west, you have the Ford, which is next door. Across the street, you have Lincoln, and then to the south, you have the Cadillac Buick GMC dealer, which is on Nesconset Highway. So that gives you an idea of how long and narrow this lot is. There's also a bus storage yard and a large manufacturing facility. I guess it's Island Air, which is located to the southwest and southeast of this site. There are no surrounding residential uses in the area. The nearest residential uses are a significant distance away. The application is now seeking 4 area variances in order to construct the 3-story, 85,500 square foot mini storage warehouse. I know it was stated earlier that it was a 25,500 foot basement, but all of the floors are 28,500, and the denial letter actually says 28,500, so I think that's just a typo. But I just want to be clear, the total is 114,000 square feet, including the basement. And there will be parking for 111 vehicles, which includes 72 land bank parking spaces. The 4 variances are to reduce the required minimum parking from 228 spaces to 111 spaces, to reduce the minimum side yard parking setback from 6 feet to 1 foot, I should say, to permit an area with slopes greater than 15% to be altered, and then to permit structures within 10 feet of any slope greater than 25%. I want to point out that the last 3 variances, the parking setback and the parking in and adjacent to the sloped areas, are triggered by the location only of the land bank parking spaces, as shown on the far southern end of the property, where we're not doing any development. So they're just land bank. They're not likely to ever be constructed. But they actually, by putting them on paper, they trigger 3 of the 4 variances. I think the only real, I don't know if I can use that word, the only real variance here is to reduce the amount of on-site parking. The town's parking ratio for mini storage warehouses is 1 space for every 500 square feet of gross floor area. That requires 228 spaces. However, as Alec Kosiski is going to explain, and as this board probably knows, mini storage warehouse uses generate very little traffic, and they need nowhere near the parking that is actually required by the town code. The board may also recall that when it approved this application, an application for mini storage on the site in 2020, it required that the architecture be enhanced with pilasters, cornices, and similar ornamentation. That was proposed in the revised plan, and since this plan doesn't change anything above the grade, it's only digging a hole in the basement, putting something underneath, that architecture is not changing. So I just want to make sure the board knows that whatever they asked for in 2020 is going to be there with this application. Also, the prior mini storage warehouse was received site plan approval from the town board in March of 2021, and we anticipate that the town board will also approve this site plan if it is approved by this, if the variances are approved by this board. So I'd like to introduce Alex, who will briefly describe the site plan and explain why the 111 spaces that are provided will be more than adequate for the proposed use. Alex?
Okay.
Thank you.
Excuse me, before you start, just, the people that are still here, we're not going to be able to vote on either one of your applications tonight. We need a CEQA. So you're more than welcome to stay, but we're not going to be able to vote on it tonight. Okay? Okay, thank you. I just didn't want to waste your time.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Alexander Kosiski, Kosiski. I'm a project manager at Bowler Engineering, which is located at 275 Broad Hollow in Melville, New York. As Mr. Gordino had mentioned, we're here on behalf seeking 4 variances: parking variance, a minimum parking setback, side property line, a disturbance of environmentally sensitive land, and a permit to construct structures with 10 feet of any slope greater than 25%. As Mr. Gordino had mentioned previously, 3 of the 4 variances are being triggered by the land bank parking that we're setting towards the rear, where there is steep slopes beyond 10%, which per your code, we need to seek variance for. As Mr. Gordino also had mentioned, the site is very unique. It's a wooded area, 87 feet wide in the front, 65 feet in width in the back. The site is zoned LI industry where mini storage are permitted as of right. The building footprint is a 3-story, 85,500 square foot building with the addition now of the 28,500 square foot basements. Our site proposes 40 true stalls and 72 land bank stalls at the rear, and will incorporate new site lighting, new landscaping per town code. Due to the addition of the basement, the code requires that we provide an additional 57 parking stalls, 1 stall for every 500 square feet, totaling to 228 parking stalls. Previously, we had come to the board with a requirement of 171, and the intent of the land bank stalls was to keep the percentages similar to the previous granted ZBA approval for the parking variances. Our office, alongside with our traffic consultants, have actually collected data on multiple self-storage sites similar to ours in size in multiple municipalities, such as the Extra Space in North Babylon, the Simply Self-Storage in Hauppauge, the Wesley Self-Storage in East Northport, and Life Storage in Bayshore. And the data suggests that at peak times in these facilities, there's only a total of 7 parking stalls per hour. So 7 parking stalls at the peak, and the average was 5 parking stalls. Based on our data, we would assume that the 40 parking stalls is sufficient for our site. As mentioned earlier, our intent is to never build these 72 unless required. They've been provided to just further meet the parking requirements set forth to the town. As I mentioned, the reason for the minimum setback 6 feet to 1 foot is, you'll see at the rear, it pinches because the site is now 65 feet in width at the back, 85 feet in the front. So that will pinch the site at the back at that 1 foot marker. And then the other 2 variances have to do with the steep grading at the back, which we intend to keep natural and not develop at the rear. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
You just have 1 elevator to get downstairs to the basement?
There's gonna be elevators on all 4, the 3 stories in the basement. So yes, there'll be an elevator.
Just 1?
I believe it's 2. 2 elevators, yes.
2?
2.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I just want to point out, just to kind of underscore the point about the 3 variances that we need but don't need. even in the worst-case scenario, if for some reason the 41 spaces, I would say 40 spaces they were not sufficient, and we had to add even another 40 or another 20, which is just not going to happen, you're still never going to get to build spaces so far to the south where you actually, where the variance is triggered. You're never going to build those. So it's so unlikely, is just the point I'm trying to make. If I just can wrap up, with respect to the standards, the granting of these variances will have a significant benefit to my clients, namely the success of their facility. There won't be any corresponding detriment to the community or the neighborhood. The building will be attractively designed. It will be nicer than most other buildings in the area, and the proposed changes to the building will be, as I mentioned, all below grade and not visible. Also, the area is surrounded by car dealerships and large parking lots used to store new vehicles, so it's not impacting anyone. There's no feasible method to provide my clients with the additional square footage that would not require the requested relief. The parking variance appears to be significant in number, right? It's like 50%, but it really is not, because as Mr. Koziski just mentioned, we don't need anywhere near even the spaces that we're providing, the actual spaces. There will be absolutely no negative impact on the physical or environmental conditions of this well-traveled portion of Middle Country Road, which is, as you know, mostly fully developed. And then lastly, the hardship arguably is self-created, because my clients, they're charged with knowing the town's regulations when they acquired the property. But as you know, the finding of a self-created hardship is not a dispositive factor. So I have nothing else. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has.
I mean, just to recap, the architectural design stays exactly the same as last time.
Yes, in the book, I
Yeah.
don't know if you took a look at, well, you see it on the
Yeah.
cover, actually. It's the
Yeah.
same, it's the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
I'd just like to
yeah,
get it on the
yes.
record.
Sure,
That's
yes.
all.
Okay.
Along with the landscaping, so in the previous application, we added elaborate landscaping along the sides, the two side yards, so the landscaping will remain the same.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Excuse me. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Nope. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you
Good
so
night.
much. Nice to see you all.
A pleasure. Take care. You're welcome. Have a nice evening. And that concludes our meeting for tonight.